Flock Talk. Today we are going to be going over what you need to do when you first bring a new bird home. We're going to kick this off by starting with what you actually need to have done before your bird comes home. There's a few things you need to have done before the bird actually makes it into your house, and of course the first thing is making sure that you have all the necessary supplies. If you bring a new bird home in its little box or carrier and then you're trying to set up a cage or move furniture around to make room for their stuff, you're going to have a very extremely stressed out bird, and birds are very sensitive animals, so we need to make sure that we are reducing as much stress as possible, because stress can actually kill them. So prior to your bird actually coming home, you want to make sure that you have their cage thoroughly set up. If there's any furniture that you need to move around to make room for it, if there's a room you wanted to set up, you want to make sure you have all that stuff set up before your bird actually comes home. This means all the cage parts are set up, all the perches are in, all the toys, and all the food dishes. You also want to make sure that the food and water dishes are full and fresh for the day that they come home, so you aren't sticking your hands into the cage immediately after bringing them home. On top of this, you may also want to move some of your furniture away from where the bird's cage is for the first little while, if their cage is going to be in a public room like your living room. This way, if you have to go and sit down on the couch, you're not sitting on a chair that's right next to their cage if your bird is extremely stressed out for that first little while. You want to give them their space, so making sure that you've moved these things prior so you can still carry on with your ordinary everyday life, lounging on your chair without impeding their personal space. You also want to make sure that you have located an avian vet nearby you, not a regular vet, not an exotics vet. It has to be an avian specific vet. Birds are very, very sensitive when it comes to medications and anesthetic, and they have a very unique biology about them that makes them a very difficult creature to give medical care to if they haven't been properly trained. So it's very important that you find an avian specific vet near your location before you actually have the bird in your care. Additionally, you will want to do your own independent research. Go on a bunch of different forums, find a bunch of different websites, find people who are properly certified, read different opinions on things, and give yourself a good base knowledge about your bird. The sort of things you may want to look into are potential problem behaviors, potential health problems, and species-specific dietary needs. If you're getting a weird bird like an eclectus or a lorikeet, you're going to have different dietary needs than a budgie and a macaw might. So you want to make sure that when you bring your bird home, you find out if they need a lot more greens, if they need a lot more fruit, if they can have pellets or not. There's some things that are very specific to certain species you will want to find out. It may also benefit you to look into how these animals live in the wild, where they naturally live, the usual temperatures and habitats, what sort of foods they naturally feed on, what sort of environment they live in. If they live in grassy, arid areas and they forage on the ground, you'll want to give them enrichment that allows them to forage and pick at the ground through different grasses and provide them those sorts of activities. You can also find different details on the humidity as well as how frequently they bathe naturally that can give you ideas of what things are healthy and safe for your bird and what things aren't. Once you've got all your prep work down, their cage and environment is set up, and you are thoroughly knowledgeable and you think you are ready for this bird to come home, then we can actually bring the bird into the house. What you do within these first couple days depends very greatly on both your bird as an individual and the history your bird already has. If your bird is from a breeder and has been hand raised, you will find that you probably can interact with this bird after a day or so of letting them settle in. Oftentimes these birds will actually beg to come out of their cages because they're so used to being handled regularly that they don't really care that you're a stranger. They just know that people are positive things to be around and they don't care to be in their cage alone, so they will sit there and beg to come out. It is totally fine to let your bird out of its cage within the first few couple of days if it is comfortable doing so. If you have a bird that was not hand raised or hasn't been handled very frequently, you may need to give them additional time to settle in, which can take several weeks. For some birds, it may be several months. How long this takes both depends on you and the work you put into it, as well as your bird and how stressed out they are, as well as past experiences that they've had with people. For birds that haven't seen people before, you will want to make sure just to give them their space and let them be comfortable, and familiarize yourself with what fear responses look like. During this first period of time, it is so exciting to have this new little bird in your house that you just want to handle it very frequently. But I encourage you to give them their space, let them relax, let them evaluate where they are and get used to the different sounds and environment that they're in, and take the time to familiarize yourself with fear responses. Take a look at what fearful body language looks like and what fearful behaviors might be. During this first period of time, your bird is going to be presenting a lot of them, and you need to be able to recognize them ahead of time so you don't push past your bird's regular boundaries. What can happen if you aren't familiar with these types of fear responses is you inadvertently push past them, you ignore your bird's body language, and then you end up getting bitten because they have to lash out to tell you to go away. This is where you can start to get birds that are very moody, that don't get handled, that get left in the cage all the time, and become very, very aggressive. If you familiarize yourself with what fear responses and fear body language looks like, you'll be able to go, oh, they're scared, they're telling me to back away, and you can leave them alone. You won't have to get bitten, your bird knows that you're respecting their body language, and they know they don't have to bite you to get you to stop what you're doing. Some of the most obvious sort of fear response signs you will see will be a slimming out of their feathers and standing up very, very tall. This is a very common thing that birds will do when they are uncertain of something that's coming near them. If they're getting a little uncomfortable, they'll stretch out very, very tall. You'll see their eyes get stressed and very, very wide and round as they're trying to look at what's happening and where they can go to escape. Your bird might be looking its head around quite frantically, trying to find an escape route to get away from whatever's coming at them, which might be you at this point in time. The next thing a bird might do is just simply fly away. This is usually the first thing they try to do. Birds don't typically want to fight you. If they feel like there's a way to escape, they will. If your bird has decided to turn around and fly or run away or climb as far as they can, leave them alone. If you keep pushing past their boundaries and you chase them around the cage, your bird is going to just associate you with being very, very scared, and they're going to start resorting to fighting to tell you to bugger off, which is typically the next thing you'll see when it comes to a fearful bird. If your bird is extremely scared and they don't feel like they can escape, or they feel like every time they show you that they're scared, you simply ignore their body language, they're going to resort to aggressive behavior. For some birds, this might just be lunging, where they will open up their beak and lunge out towards you. Just as a warning, they will usually smack their beak on you or slam it against a perch to tell you that they do not want you near them and they will hurt you if you continue to progress. Other birds, however, may just give you a threatening pose. Parrotlets typically will fluff up their feathers quite massively, especially the ones on the nape of their neck, and they will hold their wings slightly out, their bodies low to the ground, and their beaks wide open. This is to show you that they are big, they are dangerous, they are showing you that their beak is open, they are being threatening, they are telling you to go away. The main reason why your bird would be presenting this behavior at this point in time is because they're scared and they know that this is the only way to get you to stop, or they don't feel like they can escape. Familiarize yourself with these types of body language so you can learn how to properly tame and interact with your bird and know when it's appropriate to move to the next steps. During these first few weeks, it is very crucial that you are aware of these fear body language responses. Your bird is going to be very stressed out and very scared, and you want to make sure that you're making them feel comfortable and safe and happy. As enticing as it can be to just chase them around the cage and grab them and make them do what you want, that's going to hurt your relationship with them in the long run. You will actually make progress a lot faster if you show them that you can respect when they tell you to go away and that they don't have to be scared when you're around. So what you do on the first few days is very much going to depend on whether or not your bird was hand raised. If they were hand raised, you may find within the first 24 hours the bird's decided that its environment is pretty safe and it just wants to interact with you because whoever raised it showed it that interacting with people was beneficial and a good thing. You can absolutely let your bird out within the first 24 hours if they are already comfortable with people and they've established that they are comfortable with their environment. Just make sure you're being safe about it. Don't pick them up and run them around the house. Just sit near their cage, sit with them, let them escape to the cage if they need to. Just be very aware of their body language and don't put them in a situation where they might be scared and unable to get away. If you do have a bird that has not been hand raised or is particularly more skittish, you want to give them more space. This is where you may need to leave a bird alone for a week or two and just let them evaluate their environment. There's a couple things you can do to help extremely skittish birds settle into the house a little bit better, and that's things like leaving your TV on and playing a very soft radio. Now, you don't generally want to be playing nature channels that are going to have a lot of loud, noisy birds, because your bird has no idea where it is, they have no idea whose territory this is. Hearing birds all over the place is going to be very threatening and very scary. For some birds, playing sounds of the same species may also cause a lot of distress as they will start to contact call and figure out where they are. Playing generally soft music that doesn't have a lot of nature sounds is going to be more beneficial in these sorts of scenarios. What the point of the music or the TV is just to dull out background noise. Naturally, if the environment goes really, really quiet, that tends to mean there's a predator nearby and every other prey animal in the area has fled. That's scary, that means it's dangerous, and you need to leave. If your house is extremely quiet all the time, your bird is going to be very stressed out, and every little noise in your environment, whether it's the clack of a pot in a pan or the car outside honking its horn, that can be extremely jarring and extremely stressful. So by playing little bits of music that are just very toned down, very quiet, just to create a sort of background noise, it will help level out those sounds so they aren't so jarring and scary. The next thing that's going to be beneficial for almost any bird you bring home is going to be the placement of their dishes. For the first week or so, the bird is going to be pretty wary of you. They're not going to want to go down pretty low in their cage, and they're not going to want to eat when you're in the room. This isn't something to be offended by. This is just something that your bird does in order to protect itself. If there's something threatening nearby, they're not going to bend their heads into a dish and eat. It's going to make them more vulnerable and more likely to be gobbled up by a predator. So if you don't see your bird eating, it's not necessarily a cause for panic. Just make sure to take a look at the floor of their cage. If you see pellet dust or seed husks on the floor, they are eating, and they will be fine. Additionally, you can make sure that they're drinking water by looking at the dish. Generally, there will be crumbs or there will be some feathers or something. There's little bits of residue that will fall into the water to show you that they have been near it and been drinking out of it. What can help with this is where you place your dishes in the cage. If you happen to have a vision cage, their dishes come on the floor, and this can be very dangerous for new birds who are particularly skittish. The higher up you have your dishes, the more likely your bird is going to feel comfortable going around and eating. Going down to the floor is a very dangerous place to be, especially if you don't know where you are, and it makes you very exposed to predators. So being able to stay up high while getting all the resources you need to survive will guarantee that your bird will still be eating and drinking, even though they may be particularly stressed out. After you've given your bird a little bit of time to settle in, then I would go ahead and take them to the vet. Generally speaking, you do want to get your bird to the vet as fast as possible. Birds are extremely good at hiding illnesses. It's very important to get them checked as soon as possible, especially if you have previous birds in your house that could get infected. However, as I said earlier, birds can die if they get exposed to too much stress, so it is beneficial for some birds to give them time to relax and settle in before taking them to the vet. Let some of that stress release, let them calm down, and then go ahead and book your appointment. That being said, if you do think your bird is sick or you are noticing changes within that first week, do take them to the vet, because the risks of stress will probably not outweigh the risks of the illness that they're expressing. Birds are extremely good at hiding illnesses. If they show any sign of being sick, they will get booted out of their flock and quickly eaten up by predators. So they do their absolute best to pretend that they aren't sick or hurt when they are. For that reason, when you get a new bird, going to the vet and asking for a new bird exam will give them a couple rounds of blood work and give them a good physical checkup. They may do a fecal exam as well. These sorts of things will give you a good base idea of where your bird is at, how their nutrition is, if they need more calcium, where their blood cell counts are at, and your vet can tell you what things you might need to change in their diet, if they need more exercise, or if there's any underlying health concerns that they may be expressing right off the hop. It also gives you a good base idea of where their nutrition and general health is at, so you can know if you need to be in a rush to get them off of seeds onto pellets, if you need to quickly throw vegetables into their diet, if they might need a vitamin supplement for a while. It'll give you a good idea of how to take good care of your bird. And that is pretty much going to be it for the first week with your bird. If you have a bird that is extremely sociable and is willing to come out of the cage and is not showing fear responses and is pretty comfortable, then you can go ahead and you can start giving them treats and associating you with positive things and slowly building up that trust. You could start introducing some clicker recognition and just little tiny simple activities to start building more happiness and enjoyment with you being around. But for the most part, birds will just want to be left alone for the first little while. There will be a ton of resources online that will tell you for the first week you need to sit on the couch, move closer, put your hand on the cage, put your hand in the cage, and just kind of slowly push yourself into their space. That isn't really necessary and can cause a lot of damage if your bird is already stressed out and presenting fearful body language. For the first week, I would just leave them alone. They're already going through a lot of stress, they're going through a lot of changes. It's better to give them that space, let them relax and start fresh. If your bird happens to be really comfortable in your house in that first week and not showing any signs of stress, no signs of fear, absolutely go ahead, start working your way a little bit closer. So if you're sitting near their cage and you're not quite sure whether or not they're comfortable, I would just sit there, maybe put a treat in the cage and walk away. Just do little things like that. So you're not staying in their space for an extensive amount of time. You're just showing up, giving them something really good, and you're walking away. That's all they need to know that you are beneficial, that you are bringing good things, until you can start fully taming them. Taming will be coming in another video. I will hopefully be doing it later this month, but we will see how it pans out, and we will go from there. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope this gave you a good idea of what to keep an eye out for the first little week that you are with your bird. And congratulations to those of you who did just bring a new little bird home recently. I hope you guys have a lot of success. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all next time. Bye. So I would make sure to take a focus. Bye.